Good afternoon. I'm Rick Black, owner of Core Pro CPR and Safety. This afternoon, our Who Is segment, we're talking to Frank Colvett, who is the chairman of Memphis City Council, and we're going to get to know who he is behind the scenes. Before we do that, Frank, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me this afternoon. Let folks get to know you a little bit.
Rick, thank you so much for having me. It's always a good chance just to visit.
Yes. Well, before we get into the personal side, we'll know a little bit about you. Some folks don't know a whole lot about the Memphis City Council, what it is, what does the chairman do? So what does a day in the life of a chairman of the City Council look like anyway? What goes on here?
Think herd kittens. In reality, the Memphis City Council is the legislative branch of our city government, and one of our primary charges is to pass a balanced budget every year. And so the chairman's primary goal, in our really biggest, what I call the Super Bowl, is to pass you a balanced budget, and in my preference and my hard work, along with our council, a balanced budget with no tax increase. A day in the life of a chairman, a typical city councilman is very tied to their district and to the city as a whole in terms of potholes, trash pickup, police, fire, things with libraries, parks, all the things that the city is responsible for. They are, for lack of better words, the grassroots, the boots on the ground. And when something comes up or an idea comes up, they bring things forward to the council via resolution or an ordinance, which is an actual law. So what I do then as chairman is to make sure, absolutely sure that as it goes through the process from the beginnings and the writings, make sure it passes legal muster, going through the committee process, the appropriate committee, and then as it goes to the full council for readings and votes to make sure that it all, and this is just my leadership style, to make sure that it's fair and orderly. I've always said that except for an illegal activity, there's no wrong way to be chairman. But the way Frank Colvett approaches it is, I ask, what is the fair way of doing this? Even if I don't agree with you,
Sure.
I want you as a council member, but you also as a public Memphian to say, hey, I disagreed with him, but he was fair about it. He was straightforward, and however it turns out, at least you walk away knowing that your government listened to you and that it came out as it came out.
Okay, sounds interesting. So I'm thinking, you remember the days of the high school job fairs, career fairs and stuff? You had the firemen and the policemen and all the doctors and all those folks. Well, you're probably like me. I retired from the federal prison here in Memphis, and I never saw the
As
job
one of
fair.
the people in charge, not one of the guests.
One of the employees. Thank you. I appreciate you asking about that. So there was no career fair for, when I grow up, I want to be a councilman. What brought you to this, your career path? How did you prepare for it or fall into it?
Yeah. Well, the 50 Cent Tour is the first Republican congressman elected west of the Tennessee River since Reconstruction. And I called him Uncle Robin Beard. And back then, they didn't pay congressmen much of anything. So whenever Robin came to town, I lost my bedroom, and I had to go bunk with my sister.
I see.
So I hated politics growing up, but I was with Uncle Robin going through the Capitol and going to visit the White House when Mr. Carter was president, and that was just my world. That's all I understood in terms of, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're going to Washington again. And all my friends were just like, what do you mean? After the Gulf War in '91, I interned for then Congressman Sundquist, got real Potomac fever. The Brady gun bill was very big. '92, graduated college. That was H.W. Bush's unsuccessful re-election. Was very involved in that locally. Met several of the local players, and also a young guy who became a very close friend of mine, Congressman David Kustoff. David and I became very, very good friends. He rolled forward his path, and I rolled forward in mine. We were working on multiple campaigns together. 1999, I got an interesting phone call from David. Said, pack your bags, we're going to Austin, Texas. I said, why? Well, you're going to meet Governor Bush. I said, okay. So we went to the governor's mansion, and we were the first Tennesseans to sign on and chair and head up George W. Bush's successful Tennessee and presidential election.
Okay.
David then ran the state campaign again in 2004, followed through, and from there, now, then go forward to 2015. I always told, because I'd never run, I told everybody that I was happy raising money, and that's just what I like to do. And as it turned out, I finally got just so mad at the way I saw the city of Memphis going and the things that were happening. I finally got what my critical piece was, and I think this is everybody's life. You finally get to that point where I am no longer going to sit outside and complain. I am going to get in there and I am going to help steer the ship. Ran, won, and was successfully reelected last year, 2019.
Cool, great. And so the only job you've ever had is in politics?
No, sir. That's that is my side job.
Your government service. I say politics. Yeah, as a retired government employee, public servant, and I took that very passionately and seriously from my military service to with the federal government, and to that point, let me take this opportunity to thank you for choosing public service, because I know you and your not constituents, but your counterparts on the council and what you do. I appreciate that.
Well, and thank you for your service to our country. I don't think our veterans, as I have been working hard with the county commission, the state, and the feds to add more housing for our veterans, but also had longer term care facilities. Right now, for several of our veterans, some of the nearest care is in Bolivar. So we're working very hard to get some of the long term care also here and back to Memphis. To the side of the day job, as I call it, my great granddaddy started a firm called Greenscape, and that was from 1992 until a year ago. That was my world, my day job, family business. We've since, of course, sold it, and they're doing great over there. And I sell real estate and buy and sell homes now. That's my, as I'm fond of saying, that's the paying gig.
Okay, landscape and real estate.
It's all development.
Together. Yeah,
it's all the same.
So it sounds like you're a native Memphian. Been in Memphis? You traveled much? Lived other places?
Except for college, I have actually lived in District 2 all my life.
Oh my goodness.
Quite literally all my life. Lifelong Memphian. I grew up, went to school here. Went to college away only because my parents still lived here. And
that's pretty typical. I have children
formative years needed to be on me. But no, sir. Born and raised Memphian. I will die Memphian and always will be. It's just grit and grind is just. Have you ever noticed that we're our own harshest critics here?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But God help anyone from not here that's not from here criticizes us.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's what makes Memphis so beautiful and so unique, in that we are our own toughest critics. But that is, if we don't let that make us down on Memphis, but in turn, and like me in 2015, inspires us to say, I'm going to get in the middle of this and help push it forward, then it is positive. And that is, as I'm fond of saying, if we start from where we agree, then it pushes Memphis forward.
Yeah, that was one of the things I loved to do working at the federal prison, and the Bureau of Prison system was very transit. You'd have people coming and going. We'd have visitors, and they would come to Memphis, and they'd heard some things about Memphis. I loved to tell them the other side and show them, and because I had so much more to show than the folks that had bad things to say.
Yeah, just take them to the rendezvous. You'll be fine.
There you go. There you go. So, on the personal side, I know you don't do this on your own. You got to have some support somewhere and something to do when you're not here doing council business. So what does that take? With married, kids, hobbies, interests, things like that?
My 2 gigs are enough. I am extraordinarily blessed to be married to Leslie Colvett. I'll be 20 years this year in September. And 2 beautiful children, Harmon, who will be 18 shortly, and Ella, who will be 14. And for anybody considering running for public service, public office, if your family does not 110% agree with it, on board, and you have somebody like me perhaps that can lift the veil, that look, this is a full-time job. Yeah, they pay you part-time. The potholes, the trash, the midnight phone calls, the power going out, all of that. There aren't Air Force One rope lines. There aren't, catered meals on silverware and all that. No, you serve the public in the most grassroots capacity. And if the family isn't 110% on board with it, maybe that's the same with life. Whatever you want to do for your life's work, they're on board 110%. They understand where it is. They volunteered with me, shaking hands, 110-degree heat index, raising money. The late nights I'm out, somebody calls me about something, and we go dash out to go take a look at it. If you don't have family, you can't do it. I'm also blessed, and you probably don't hear this from a lot of folks, but I'm blessed to have very good parents, but especially very good in-laws. I'm a huge, and maybe one of the only ones that will publicly admit, I'm a huge fan of my parents-in-law. They're a rock, and they're so solid.
Awesome, that's great. So if you were to get the opportunity, and hopefully you do occasionally, to get away, get it with those folks that are 110% behind you, what would a week away look like with
Fantasyland, in all direct candor. Vacations don't happen. You eke out the time when you can get it. Usually it's at the last minute. If the family had a chance and I was in charge, we would be going to Arizona or the Southwest United States to go climb mountains. That's kind of my fun thing. If Leslie had her control, which of course she does, we'd be going to New York to see the sights up there. And I think if the kids had their choice, we'd be going to the beach.
Yeah.
So we get 1 or 2 days here and there.
Bounce them in.
You catch can in this game.
Yeah, I get it. 4 children myself.
Well done.
So
well
done.
So
we. Let's bounce back to politics for a second. And you're thinking, uh-oh, I get enough of this. And the guy's going to ask me about politics. I've always been the glass is half full kind of guy. Politics is very divisive in our nation. It is uglier than I've ever seen it in my life. But at the same time, and even here locally, of course it is, because we have different opinions and different perspectives based on our own positions and upbringing. But let us know what's going on that is in common right now with you and the other council members, that you're all on board, whether it be the vision for Memphis, this community, whatever. What do you have in common?
Well, what you speak to is how I take and approach the chairmanship. When in command, lead. Mm-hmm. And I can't stress that hard enough. Even if you're not entirely sure where you're going, dadgummit, get up, get it in gear, and get it going. Mm-hmm. I learned it in construction. When I figured out that foul mouth, of course, when I started, they could be. But when that foul mouth, gruff job site superintendent, called me up and raised Cain with me because I said I would be there that day and my team wasn't. At first, it's hard not to take it personally, but then you learn very quickly, no, he has an objective to get the building built, to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And what he was doing was he was beginning, like all good construction projects, you begin with what we all agree on. We want to get the job done, here are the plans. Yeah. Okay. Now there end up being disagreements on exactly how to get there. And inevitably there is one guy or gal in charge. So tied into the current public discourse. My advice to our council members, because I tend to be considered fiscally to the right of Attila the Hun, but to our council members that are on the exact opposite of the spectrum of me, what I began by saying is, let's start with what we agree on. Okay, we got to get this job done. We got to get the building built. Then we move forward from what we agree upon, and then, as I have found happily in my life, when you agree on things and begin agreeing with things, by the time you get to what you disagree on, you're not all up in arms. If you start with this construction project, what you disagree on, okay, blows apart. So what I would share with just the public at large, you see a lot of discourse. The beauty of our republic, okay, is that we settle it with words in the arena of ideas. It is when it goes violent, that's when it crosses the line. Okay, that is completely unacceptable. I don't care if it's public or private property. But that sends the sour taste to most everybody about how politics is. What I would submit to them, though, is that acid that you feel from it is actually a good thing. That is both sides trying to hammer out the positions. Mm-hmm. And it takes us to the last piece that I think our viewers would get kind of uptight about. Compromise is not a dirty word. No. compromise when it is your objective to stop drag racing in Memphis, Tennessee, okay? To stop the loud mufflers. You would be surprised that there are council members that are pushing back on that, okay? Currently, they'll remain nameless. So what we're doing is we're beginning with showing videos of the pedestrians on the side that could be killed if that car goes out of control. That the cars on the side of the road, or they're trying to drive, and these people drag racing around them, show how dangerous that is. Yeah. Okay, we can all agree on that. All right, we're agreeing. Let's move forward. You know, you have mufflers. Okay, well, we think that that's just an excuse for the cops to roust people. All right, how many times have you been woken up by a loud muffler? Well, last night. Okay, so we agree they're loud. We talk about the environmental dangers. We begin on what we agree on. So, to go back to the original question and really hammer the point home, start on a disagreement with what you do agree with to your opposition.
That's good.
When the public sees the acid and the press trying to sell magazines and newspapers by heightening all that tragedy and promoting, let's call it what it is, their personal agendas, always remember the beauty of our republic is that we're settling it with words, and we're eventually going to find the right solution slowly but surely. But we're not going to settle it with fists, and we're not settling it in the street.
Very good. I like that. I'm going to have to make note of that. Start with what you agree on. Start with what you agree on. Similar in business, I find that building relationships first, and then go from there.
Well, general contractors want to get the job done as quickly, on time, for the right price, with as little hassle as possible. Sometimes they're willing to sacrifice and pay a little bit more for less hassle. You know, it all depends on the great game of what we can all agree on and build from there.
Let's wrap it up with one more perspective here. You've got a week off, away from the council, away from your responsibility. I've got all of your expenses covered. You're going to get away, do what you want to do. Your lovely wife and children are cool with it. They're going to hang back and just let you have your own time for a week. Totally selfish. Now, a lot of people, when I put this before them, they say, I want to take my wife and kid. No, you can't. This is 100% selfish. So what would Frank do?
Frank would not accept it because that is illegal gratuity. Frank would also, if he did accept it, would report it as an in-kind donation within certain limits. But if you ask me, figuratively speaking, if I could just kind of just bottle up and go anywhere. Again, I'd go to Arizona and just climb a mountain. I know I don't exactly look like a jogger or a climber, but that is where I find peace and balance. But as I found, the reality, I think, and in the same way could be said for construction, you know, look, if you can get an afternoon where you can just literally go do yard work or go with your wife and go shop for supper that night and maybe help her make supper, because Leslie's much better at that than I am. But, you know, however your family works and however you can find balance with them would be my advice. One thing, and you kind of touch on this, one thing I'm always advising newer council members is that always be careful of that person offering you stuff. Yeah. But also be very careful of your sleep habits. I mean, your food intake, your alcohol intake. This job can eat you alive if you let it. But if you continue to find the balance of what you're suggesting, even if it's just an afternoon off of just vegging out and watching Tom Brady play the Super Bowl. You know, so,
okay, we know where you stand.
I'm fascinated that, you know, I'm all for the old guys. I passed that point of yay, young guys.
Yeah, young guys, huh?
No, we'll let the old guys teach them a lesson.
Yeah, there you go. Figured this. Well, Frank, Council Chairman Colvett, Frank, I appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully that the folks that watch this and realize that, oh, he's not just a council guy up there like everybody. He's just one of us. Thanks for taking the time.
I dig ditches like everybody else, and thank you for having me, Rick.
All right. All righty. You mentioned that